Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a 2017 American psychological horror thriller film titled Gerald's Game. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. It is a sunny day for a trip from Portland to Alabama. On the car, a hit from Sam Cooke in 1975 is playing. A woman named Jessie turns the stereo off. Her husband, Gerald, asks if she wants to switch to another song, but Jessie just wanted to breathe in the scenery. Gerald naughtily glides his hands up Jessie's skirts, but she takes it from her legs and kisses it tenderly. Gerald enters a curve in the middle of the woods while Jessie is fidgeting. Jessie gets a sight of a dog in the middle of the road and warns Gerald, who stopped abruptly. Jessie concludes that the dog is starving as it was eating a dead rodent. Gerald blows a long, loud horn to scare him away from the road. Gerald continues driving after clearing the stray dog off their way. Their red car arrives at a house near a lake. After getting off their vehicle, Gerald receives a call from his firm's assistant. Jessie takes a joyful stroll to the lakeside around the house. Gerald is really prepared for the trip, so Jessie is absolutely delighted that there was enough food in the fridge for the weekend. She sees a pack of meat and slices it. After a while, Jessie sits and whistles in the front yard to call the stray dog that they encountered earlier. While she is waiting outside, Gerald takes a blue pill of Viagra in their room. The stray dog appears from the woods. Jessie leaves the platter of meat in front of him, still keeping eye contact to pet him. The dog almost eats the food, but Gerald appears from behind her. Gerald carefully tells her how expensive the meat was, but he figured that Jessie's kind heart would still give it away even though there were only 4 slices in the fridge. Jessie tries to take the plate from the floor of the road, but Gerald tells her that it could be the best meat the dog will ever have and leaves it for the dog to take. The couple gets inside and leaves the main door open. Alone in the room, Jessie takes on her new silk nightwear and positions herself awkwardly in the bed. She gives a signal to Gerald that she was ready. Gerald walks in with a pair of handcuffs and draws closer to kiss her. He pushes her harshly to the bed and naughtily clicks the cuffs. He ties her wrist to the pole of the bed. He starts to sensually kiss her from the neckline of her silk dress and remarks how he loved the slip. When he reached the edge of the bed, he pulls her ankles to tighten the cuffs hold. Jessie smiled sinisterly when her husband halted the foreplay. Gerald goes to the sink and drinks another pill of Viagra. After drinking, Gerald starts changing his character. He is now reenacting his long-desired fantasy as a sex offender. He clears away the pillows from her head. Like a sex offender, he warns her that there is no way anybody could hear her from miles away. Jessie is panicking internally and calls out his name to stop his fantasy. But Gerald denies that he is her husband, and she would never know his name. He asks her to beg for help. Jessie laughs lightly to calm herself down and signal him that she was feeling uncomfortable with his fantasy. Gerald asks her to cooperate to make his fantasy feel real, but she admits that she feels weird. He leans to kiss her, trying to ease her fear away. When he lowered down his kisses, Jessie screams for help, finally playing his fantasy. He bites her breast, which made her gasp in pain. He apologizes but proceeds to close her mouth with his hands. Jessie stops him as pain and fear are already taking over her. Her aggressive husband gets more aggressive, concluding that her discomfort and resistance are still part of their role play. He kneels to grind into her and calls himself her daddy. Something inside Jessie snapped. She shouts angrily to stop him and orders him to uncuff her, but Gerald still thinks she is toying with him. She was lost entirely in frustration, but Gerald still argues that they were taking the vacation to add spice to their marriage. She tears up and admits that she was trying to go with his flow, but it isn't working. She wonders if a kinky bedroom is all he ever wanted now that they have reached such age. She reminds him that Gerald did not touch her for several months until she gave him permission to play perverted games. Jessie realizes that his fantasy for ravishment is the reason why he lost pleasure and interest in her for months. She begs him to unlock the handcuffs because it will never be the savior of their marriage. Gerald challenges her that he won't open them while breathing heavily. He promises that he will be sweet this time around and straightens her body in the bed again. He leans down, whispering that he will be doing it sweetly now. Knowing that he can't be stopped, she bites him squarely in the lips. The mad Gerald rises up, questioning where did their marriage go wrong. He holds his left shoulder and loses his focus. Gerald gasps, still looking for support. Jessie calls out his name while Gerald is trembling silently. He collapses above her, restraining her from figuring out what is happening to her husband. Thinking that he might be scaring her for not cooperating with his fantasy, she pushes his dead weight with her legs. She manages to take him off with her right foot, but Gerald's open eyes are not moving at all, and the veins in his forehead are bulging. Without much control, she lets him go to the edge of the bed, but his body rolled helplessly on the floor. She sits to acquire more view of the floor where he rolled, begging and screaming at him to wake up. She struggles to unlink her cuffs from the pole, but to no avail. She just sat there crying to him that it sounds more realistic now. She begs him to come back to the bed to do anything he wants with her, but her dead husband is still motionless. She starts screaming for help. The dusk has come, and the shadows started taking over the sunlight. Jessie is getting hoarse from shouting. She finds a little hope after hearing a rustling sound outside. Silently entering the bedroom door was the stray dog. She talks to him in despair, hoping that he would call for rescue in the woods. So much to her disappointment, the dog makes a tentative move towards Gerald's body. Jessie tries to shoo him away as the dog's tongue glides to lick Gerald's arm. The dog steps back for a brief while but returns to sniff it. With its scavenging senses, the dog manages to bite and wound Gerald's arm. Jessie gets a hold of a thin book and throws it towards the dog. Jessie cries as the dog backs out to the door. Now with a clear view of the piece of her husband's skin in the dog's mouth, she moans and wails in disgust and sorrow. She hides her face away while the dog is ripping the meat with its fangs. When she looked up, Gerald is already trying to set himself erect from the floor. Jessie thankfully mutters that he was alive and asks him to uncuff her. Gerald is holding his right arm with his left hand and points that his wound was caused by the dog she fed earlier. Jessie catches sight of Gerald's figure still on the floor. She looks back astounded at her husband, who was back on his feet, blaming her that she was the one who fed the dog. With his wounded arm, he moves around her vision. He remarks how she just sat there for hours, even though his corpse was on the floor. Like the lawyer he was, Gerald concludes that Jessie is just having a mental breakdown after seeing that a dog just started feasting on his corpse. He keeps going back to the punchline, saying Jessie is just an unplugged life support system charging low while time is ticking by. Gerald leans beside her, leading her questions to calculate how much time has gone by, and soon after, one more figure of Gerald starts appearing in her window. The two faces remind her in a chorus that she has wasted 5 long hours doing nothing but scream for help to neighbors who are a long distance away. The faces are gone for a while, and she looks over the busy dog at the door and the phone over the bedside table on her right. Gerald warns her that no matter how hard she'd break her wrist, the cuffs are never going to let her go. Surprisingly, Jessie manages to pull her right wrist out of the cuff. She stands to the left side of the bed and struggles to break free from the pull. When the bar cracks successfully, Jessie walks to the door and proudly tells Gerald that it was easy, but breaking free isn't that easy, and the image of Jessie breaking free from the cuff isn't real. Gerald tells the chained Jessie that her hands won't fit the cuffs, and the pulls are reinforced. Her animated self draws to the bed's edge, telling her never to listen because her condescending husband is always the reason she is in deep trouble. Her inner self belittles his mighty tiny genitalia, but Jessie retorts that she was chained to the bed no matter what she says. She warns her that if Jessie just runs away and hallucinate in denial and panic, she will die. She reminds Jessie that somebody else had placed Jessie in chains before Gerald did. Gerald curiously asks who it was, but Jessie dismisses him with her deep breathing. Jessie storms off until the shadows of the sun disappear. When it was finally dark, Jessie stretches her legs out to reach for the phone, but Gerald stops her because it wasn't charged anyway. The inner Jessie retorts that Gerald didn't even do a load of laundry during their marriage. It was an arduous struggle getting her foot to the phone, so her inner self suggests that she should live long enough to let people know that she needs help. The dog is still savoring Gerald's meat on the floor. She moans in disgust and hunger, as she can't remember the taste of her last meal and beverage. Her head was throbbing in pain when Gerald appeared beside her. He dares her how long she can hold without water and food. It's been 7 hours since she last drank water. To match her husband's audacity, Jessie looks over his Viagra pills in despair and reminds him about his erectile dysfunction. Gerald recalls how soft it was in a casual bedroom tone and how it went into a hard pet with just a hint of dominance and extreme kink. Since then, Jessie wondered who her husband really was after knowing his dirty little secret. Her inner voice, though, insists that she loved that he took those little blue pills. She asks Gerald to take one to prove her right. Gerald drinks a drug and walks close to leave a glass of water on the shelf above the headrest. It was a trigger. Gerald had always been thirsty ever since he started taking the Viagra months ago, and he always made sure he had water with him anywhere near the bed. Jessie shakes the shelf smoothly, with the slightest control that she has. She gasps in hope as the glass appears closer to the edge. Her sore left wrist lifts the base of the shelf until the glass slips through the right edge of the shelf. Finally, she gets a hold of the glass, but she can't move it closer to her mouth. Drops of water have been spilled, so Gerald is smirking upon her. Her inner self tells her to put it back to where she can easily reach it. She trembles as she follows. When she knew the water is reserved, the dog stands and tears another piece of meat from Gerald's body. Her inner self consoles her that the dog was just making a mean to survive, and she should do the same. She tells her that she will reunite with Gerald inside the dog if she doesn't hold long enough. She agrees with her, but Gerald appears above her again, complimenting her body in the nightwear. Her inner voice interrupts and tells her that it was brand new. An idea popped into her. She smiles ridiculously while reaching out on the shelf overhead for the price tag she had torn before she got in bed with Gerald. She single-handedly rolls it with her left hand and reaches for the glass of water with her right hand. Her idea is successful. She sips from the glass with her makeshift straw, but she decides to spare a small volume for later. After returning the glass to the overhead shelf, she finds herself dozing away. She struggles to close her eyes, with a glimpse of the dog tearing Gerald's limbs apart. Gerald appears on her left, challenging her that she'll be dead tomorrow if no one finds her tonight. Her inner self, though, sympathizes with her need for strength. With a more straightforward path to follow, Jessie leans to her left shoulder and shuts her eyes. After a satisfying meal, the stray dog bolts outside. In the middle of the night, he starts to bark from an audible distance. His bark wakes Jessie up. Jessie catches sight of a figure. It was dark at first, but she continues to discern what it was when it started drawing closer. It was a dubious, terrifying figure. She asks for help regardless of how bizarre he looks, but he opened a bag of ornaments and bones instead of giving her a hand. Seeing what was inside his load, she convinces herself that the figure isn't real. When she closed her eyes, Gerald whispers that she just summoned the silhouette of death, which he called the Moonlight Man. Gerald challenges her that the silhouette was real because the dog went out to avoid it. Jessie opens her eyes, and another Gerald wearing a collared shirt appears from the farther side of the bed. He warns that the dog will be back soon to tear her apart and endears her as Mouse. Jessie dozes away again. The 12-year-old Jessie, her younger siblings and her parents set foot on their family lake house. Apparently, her mother hated having her on their boat trip and insisted to her father that she does not want her to be on the trip if Jessie shows no interest to bond with them. While her mother and younger siblings went on a boat trip on the lake, Jessie was left alone at the lakeside with her father. He gave her an anti-glaring binocular so she could watch as the solar eclipse unfolds. It was supposed to be an innocent eclipse watch with him until he asked her to sit on his lap, just like what she did when she was a small kid. When she willingly sat, her father jerked himself off until the eclipse was complete. When she woke up, she winces in pain at how sore her hands have become. There were flies around the room, feasting upon Gerald's remains. The dog stands up after hearing that she has woken up. She screams from the bad cramps. Her inner voice suggests that she should just keep pedaling to keep her circulation. After pedaling, she reaches out for the glass of water and the straw from the shelf. Gerald appears beside her, asking her about the curious bad dream about Mouse. Jessie defends that her childhood issue is nowhere near relevant to her marriage with Gerald. Her inner voice reiterates that their marriage only happened because he was just like her father. She elaborated to the clueless Gerald that Jessie was taken fresh and right by her father, and she lived to tolerate all the nights of Gerald's distance and unfaithfulness, just like how she put up with her father's assault. Jessie reveals to the dead Gerald that her father never touched her carnally, that he just fantasized about her by touching himself. But her inner voice confidently uncovers that her father did something to her in the bedroom. Jessie admits that she drowned those secrets long ago in a well, where she saw a woman in a red dress during the burning eclipse. Knowing that she won't reveal more, Gerald teases her to look at the terrifying figure in the room. Jessie convinces herself that the figure wasn't real at all, but there was a bloody footprint on the floor. He warns that the Moonlight Man will be back tonight, and he'll take her wedding ring with him if she dies. Jessie warns her inner self and Gerald to vanish after she finishes counting to 10. It was the 12-year-old Jessie, fidgeting in front of the mirror. She takes her sundress off and puts it in the middle of the bed. Her father calls her again with that traumatizing endearment. Her father sits on the farther edge of the bed and taps the space beside him. She was scared, but she chose to follow. Her father apologizes but orchestrates a scheme shortly so she would shut her mouth to keep it a secret from everyone. The younger Jessie was forced to stay silent to steer away from her mother's pain and anger. When he left, Jessie looks over to see the obscure figure licking her foot. It was the dog, licking its tongue over Jessie's foot. Jessie kicks her foot to shoo him away. Luckily, the dog backs down and tears Gerald's limbs instead. Gerald walks over to her bed again and ridicules that the dog will be back eventually for a lump of fresher meat. It was afternoon again, and Jessie's lips were already pale and cracked from dehydration and exhaustion. Just like the functioning Gerald, he throws her a dozen of dreadful scenarios again while she was lying weak and desperate. Jessie starts singing a lullaby to drown Gerald's insults. Before storming off, she catches a glimpse of her father looking down over her on the bed. While the eclipse is burning, the older Jessie faces a chained younger Jessie in the bedroom. The younger Jessie reminds her that what happened after the eclipse is her salvation. The family was having dinner after the eclipse. Her mother and younger siblings were back from the boat trip. While recounting how the day went, her mother asked her how the eclipse went in the lakeside for Jessie. Her father touched her mother's pregnant belly. Jessie squeezed her glass too hard that it made a cut on her palms. While her father attended to the younger Jessie's wounds, the older Jessie realizes what she needs to do. Her inner voice warns that she must not cut deep, as she might die. But she retorts that if she doesn't risk it, she'll also die of seizures, dehydration, or the dog. Without so much strength left, she bids goodbye to the warped visions in front of her. She takes the glass and slams it onto the shelf. She squeezes her palms around the glasses left in her grip. She trembles as she positions the best shard on the shelf and drags the skin of her wrist against it. It was painful, but her plan seems to work. The blood made her skin slick as oil. She manages to slip her right wrist off from the cuff, but the skin was awfully peeled off. She pushes the bed to the right side and slips over so her right leg could reach the phone. Unfortunately, the phone's battery was running dead low. She pulls the pole of the bed to the right so she could hold her wounded wrist to the key. She frantically grasps for the key beside the canister of Viagra. With her trembling right hand, she clasps the key to her mouth. She leans close to unlock herself from the cuff. She steps towards the sink and drinks heavily like it was her first time drinking water. After drinking, she opens a few drawers for a bandage but found none. She finds 2 menstrual napkins and wraps them around her wrist. She gets a blurry sight of where the car key was, but it was too late. She collapses on the floor from dehydration and fatigue. It was already dark when she woke up. The dog was grunting while tearing another piece of Gerald's body. It was a gut-wrenching mess, which she thought might be her last scene with her husband. She drags herself to the cabinet where the car key was, but she looks back in horror when the dog barked in the middle of their dark bedroom. Just rooms away from her stand the Moonlight Man. She takes small dragging steps to hand him their wedding ring and leaves the room like she was in a race. Jessie was steering the wheel of the red car when Gerald appeared in the dark and bade her a wave goodbye. She smiles bitterly and proceeds to drive through the darkness of the night. In the middle of her escape from terror, she dozes off briefly. She wakes up with the eclipse above. From the rearview mirror, the Moonlight Man smiles from the backseat of the car. He whispers in her ear, and the car crashes into a tree. A nearby house lights up, and some flashlights are pointing in her direction. Knowing that men were coming towards her, she honks and goes out of her car. Her bloody body collapses before they could reach her. 6 months later, Jessie writes a letter to her younger self with her bandaged hand. She was rescued that night, but she kept her recollection of trauma from the doctors and cops. Gerald's firm hired a coroner who concluded that his death was due to a cardiac attack. The paperwork was fixed, and so was her life. But every night, a disfigured visitor reminds her of the terror. Even though he vanishes into the nightlight, it was still a question why the cops never found her wedding ring. To help herself heal, Jessie used some amount of Gerald's insurance to build a foundation for victims of carnal assault. When she thought the ordeal was over, she reads a piece of news about the Crypt Creeper. A man named Raymond Joubert is suffering from acromegaly and has been strolling around Alabama to gather male corpses, eat their faces, steal and keep a bone or some other possessions as his souvenir. Jessie could not believe he was real, but the crime perfectly explains why Gerald's face was mutilated and why she was left unharmed. Raymond has also killed a dozen of living people aside from the dead corpses and keeps their body parts in jars. In an afternoon with the eclipse overhead, the younger Jessie reads the letter while sitting with the older Jessie. The letter warns the younger her that the people who are supposed to protect her from the monsters turned out to be monsters themselves. Jessie attends the court for Raymond's sentence. When she interrupted, Raymond breaks free from his cuffs and tells her the same line she used to mutter when he appeared in the lake house. In her head, Jessie sees Raymond as her father, her husband, and as the Moonlight Man. She smiles triumphantly and regards him as much smaller than the frightened Jessie remembers. She walks out on him like how she bravely faced all the monsters of her past. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.